today is, getting a little bit into what is product management, then understanding product management and build trap. The next is how do we become aware if we are in a build trap, and if we know, how do we escape, right? Is there a very simple framework for us to escape, right? I'll try to keep it very simple without getting into a lot of jargon words. But if I'm still using somewhere something and it's not clear, you guys can ping or put it on the chat box so that I can quickly respond while I'm on that slide. Okay. All right. I'll give you like 10 quick seconds for you to read the statement. And I'll read it for you too. So what is product management? It is maximizing and delivering value, right, in quotes, to the business and customer repetitively. I'll let you read and consume this first. Okay, I'm hoping you got some seconds to consume it. I'll explain this to you. See, whatever we do, right, whether we do a product launch, whether we do a customer interview, whether we are working with the engineering team, managing developers, managing product managers, coming up with a product market strategy. At the end of the day, we are trying to give value to two entities here. Hey, if someone is unmuted, can you please go on mute? There's some disturbance from your end. Right. So at the end of the day, what we're trying to do here is maximize and deliver value to two entities. Business is the company for whom you're developing the product, right? Like if I am a product manager at HighRadius, for me, business would be HighRadius, right? Because I'm developing product for HighRadius. HighRadius is the brand, is the company which is going and selling. If you're doing it for Google, Google is the business. If you're doing it for Freshworks, Freshworks is the business, right? Or WhatsApp is, if you're doing it for WhatsApp, WhatsApp is the business. So that's the business entity, right? And the second is the customer. Customer is obviously your client, which can be a B2C or a B2B, but at the end of the day, customer is who is going to use your product, right? And the key here is you are delivering value to both these entities repetitively. That means in a continuous way, right? Because if you're doing it as a one-time thing, so for example, if a bank approaches you to build an application, or a friend of yours is opening up a portal and he wants a website to be built and he reaches out to you, or that is all one-time thing, right? But generally, products are something which is going to provide value to the customers on a repetitive basis, right? Like for example, if you buy a shoe, you will use it multiple times. You will not just throw it off once, as an example, right? If you're going to search something on Google, you're using it multiple times. If you're using a Netflix, you're using it multiple times. So you always remember that you're trying to maximize and deliver value to two entities in a repetitive way. And that's where the role of product management becomes so much critical. Okay. So now I'll deep dive a little bit more here, that what does this value mean for business or the company, and what does this value mean for a customer, right? So let's deep dive here a little bit. So for a business or a company, it can be a sales revenue, because ultimately they have to sell the product. So either your product is a platform using which they are getting revenue, like an Amazon e-commerce platform, or it's a product which the company is selling to the customer, like a order to cash software, an analytics software, or something which you're selling directly to the customer and you're hence getting the revenue. If it is a SaaS software, there are always metrics like booking churn, billing churn, which is about, okay, once you hire the customer, you don't want that customer to churn. That means move away from you, right? So if your customer is going away from you even before you made them live, then it is a booking churn. If a customer is moving away from you after you made them live, then it's a billing churn, right? Again, these are all examples, right? It can also be, okay, I am building a product which has to give me leads, and hence lead generation is important there, right? Or I'm trying to build a functionality in the product which will get me a lot more leads. So I'm building some product for the future. Right now, it will not give me sales revenue, but because I'm building for the future, it will give my company more leads. People will look up to my company as a innovation friendly company. Or you are building a product related to data, So the value for your company is the more clients you're acquiring, you're actually sitting on a pile of data, and maybe that data can be a new revenue source for you, right? Or you are trying to become a SME or a knowledge capital for a certain domain. So the value for a business or a company can be many, but this is how the company will view themselves as, based on what vision the company has, right? Now, for the customers, the value for customers is not the products which we deliver, but the value for customers are the desires or the needs that the product fulfills, right? That's the value, not the products which we deliver. So if you're talking to a business, it can be, okay, how much productivity did you improve for that division for whom you are building the product, right? If you're building a HR management software, are you really able to improve the productivity of the HR team in a company? That means, are they able to do more with less, as an example, right? Or let's say the HR team has a certain goal or a target that, I want to retain my employees, or I want to have employee happiness index or NPS score go up by so and so percentage. Then are you able to help them improve in their goals or targets? Or if they have a project-based goals, like I want to finish all projects on time, like a appraisal process or whatever, then is the software, HR software, helping the HR team do that, as an example? So those are business value drivers, right? And it can also be tactical, right? Tactical is, oh, you know what, today everything is just in different sheets and Excel and drives and some shared folder. There is some different 5 or 6 different tools for the same process. I just want one centralized system, right? It can also be a tactical goal or value for the customer, right? But please understand that the value for the business and the value for the customers are very different, right? And sometimes they might be conflicting too, right? It can be that your sales team wants to sell a product which will get you revenue, but you know that product, that your customers need a whole different set of features and for them to realize value. So because the person who is finally buying and the person who is finally using might be different, or you are selling for the future, but your existing customers need a different kind of a feature. So making that balance between both the business or company as well as customers, and finally delivering value, is where product management comes in as a big, critical, or product management department plays a very critical role, right? Now here, the tricky
Sonali,
part.
I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So Sonali, when you look at the WhatsApp business, right? So we
Yeah.
can see there's a straightforward, value proposition for the end consumer, right? That we can see very, there's a plain vanilla,
Yeah.
the solution WhatsApp provide, But when you
Yeah.
look at the, what value we are giving to business, I mean, as an overall company, since as we know very well that WhatsApp does not have do not have a revenue model, right? They do not have a
Correct.
revenue model for sales. They do not
Yeah.
even store data, chatting, they encrypt, decrypt, right? But they do not store at their server side. Then what value we are giving to the business? As per the definition, what you mentioned, maximizing and delivering the value to the both stakeholders, right? Business as well as customer. So customer, we can see that, but what in case of WhatsApp? Isn't there a contradiction in that definition when we talk about WhatsApp business model?
Yeah, that's
Because
a very good
there we are not
question.
delivering any value to the business or company, matlab
Yeah,
directly, I would
but but how do you know that they don't have any value?
say. As per the pointers mentioned, I'm trying to compare.
Yeah, yeah, yes, that's what I'm saying. This is not a comprehensive list, but I can tell you, right? I mean, beware that I know they encrypt and decrypt data, but again, I'm not the right person to comment on that. But there is some long-term strategy which WhatsApp has for sure with respect to why they are not taking the revenue, and what data they can use and they cannot use, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is not all just out there, like, and most importantly for them, they're trying to build a platform first. They're trying to first have all users on the same platform. So think about it. After
Mm-hmm.
WhatsApp, so many different social media messaging platforms have come over, right? Including Telegram, Signal, and whatnot, right? How many how, while people have gone to those platforms too, but is it that people have truly completely left WhatsApp? Right,
Yeah.
as an example. So maybe for them at this point, their value is, I want to be the single platform where messaging happens, and once I do that, I'll figure out my monetization, and that's what their company's vision is. Also quite possibly.
It's more of organization strategy long term
Yes, exactly. So every, like for example, someone wants to become a knowledge capital, someone wants to just acquire data. uh, they
data.
may not get a direct revenue from that, right? But there is some long-term strategy there which you or I may or may not be aware, right?
Also
Can
from
So
valuation perspective also.
yeah.
Yes, I.
yeah, so myself, Swapnil here. Can we compare this to a geo? Means ready-made example we have. At the very start, geo was free. Then it slightly increased the user count by giving the free data and made people dependent on geo. And when they collected the customers so large who are dependent on
Mm-hmm.
them, they suddenly increase the price, so which was a
Monetization.
revenue generation.
Could be possible. So I don't want to comment on that. Yeah, and in the interest of time, I'll probably try to moderate it a little bit because I have many more slides to cover. So great points. But maybe if I can request the team that unless you have, I mean, if you have something like what the current question was a very valid question, but otherwise I'll hold up the questions towards a little bit to the end, if that's okay, and then so that we complete the session on time, because I don't know how we are doing on time for the rest of the group. I can go a little over, but I'm not sure about the rest of the group. Okay, is that fine for everyone? Priyanka, are you fine with that? Looks like Priyanka is on mute.
That would be better.
Yeah, all right. But yeah, I think good that we are engaging, right? So this is where I want to go next, right? So we want to maximize and deliver value to the business and the customers repetitively, but by doing what, right? How will we do it? So that's where I'm saying the product manager role is to continuously react to the evolving constraints or changes to the customer or user ecosystem, and also to the company ecosystem, right? So we will see that what is the customer ecosystem. So remember, the customer ecosystem or constraints, like you might say, oh, I built the product once and I'm done, right? Why do I need a product manager once I have rolled out a product? You need a product manager because the customer ecosystem and the business ecosystem keeps on changing, right? Either you have new customers, new industries, or even the same customers, their needs, which was there 5 years back, and what they expected out of your product might not be same 5 years later, right? Because they're influenced by friends, colleagues, their own tech ecosystem. If they're using tech products, their own tech competencies are improving, right? And they're influenced by the latest trends in the industry or market, right? Simple thing is, maybe 5 years back, people didn't worry so much about getting a recommendation on e-commerce software on how to buy, but now that's become so common that people are like, oh, can I get a recommendation? Can Google give me a recommendation? Those kind of stuff, right? So the implicit expectation of the user and the competency, as well as how they are influenced by the friends, colleagues, and products around them, does change their expectation level, right, than what it was 5, 6, 10 years back. So it keeps on changing. And then the business ecosystem also has a lot of constraints, right? You might want to build an amazing product, but you might not have the right resource bandwidth. There might be process constraints, security constraints, compliance constraints, right? The focus areas of the organization might be very different than what you are thinking you want to do, because typically every organization will have one global charter every single year, or every 6 months, or every 3 months. And then there are internal stakeholders too, who might be using your product in some way or the other, and their expectation might also be very different, right? So what I'm trying to tell you here is that the role of this product management team becomes much more critical, not just because you have to deliver value, but also because you would have to look at this both these ecosystems equally, with an equal lens, and do the right prioritization on where to focus and where to not, right? So, and then I'll also tell you what isn't product management, right? So a lot of times people feel, okay, the client asked me to build a feature, right? Let me note down the requirement in a beautiful way, understand their as is, um, The sales tells me that if I build this feature, I'll get revenue, right? So let me go add that, right? So that's the job of an order taker, someone who is just writing files after files and dumping it down. That's an order taker, right? And the other thing is, oh, I'm just, having a developer print code, like, the millions of lines of code I print, the more features I build and release, the better I am as a product manager, right? But just think about it, right? If you go to even Microsoft Word or Google Doc, or for that matter Gmail, or even WhatsApp, any kind of product, even Amazon, like portal where we all go and shop, or a Netflix, they have so many buttons out there. How many features do we really use on a day-to-day basis, right? Something for us to think. Does that mean they should not release other features? No, but remember that all the features which are released are not necessarily used by the users on a day-to-day basis. So just being an order taker or printing a lot of code does not make us a great product manager, right? So that's what I wanted to, or does not correlate to a lot of revenue consistently. So this is all I'm trying to call out, that this is not product management. Now, given that we have the context of what product management is and isn't, let's go a little bit into what's the build trap is, right? Build is very simple, guys. Build is correlated to developing a software, building a feature, where you're investing. You define a business requirement. There is a developer who goes builds it. So you're building it, right? It's no more in ideation phase. You're building the feature and releasing it to production, right? So the answer first is product managers often fall prey to build trap, and that happens when the focus is on output, like a feature is delivered or not, versus the focus being on outcome, right? So there is a difference between output and outcome. Whenever you're building and you say, okay, whether a feature is delivered or not in a release successfully, which a lot of product owners or Scrum or Agile processes follow, that's actually output, right? But the actual product success comes from outcome. Outcome is my feature being truly used by the client, and is it helping them fulfill their needs? Is my decision really helping in low churn, like my customers are not going away, or increasing revenue? So those are the kind of questions or answers which are important. And if our decision is leading to an outcome and we are using the outcome to drive whether I should prioritize that or not, then that's the right job. But if we are using oh, this feature is excellently delivered or not as a criteria, then that is output driven. So we fall prey to the build trap lot often subconsciously, because we're running in this agile process, or fast track process, where we have to deliver features over features, releases after releases, and lot often subconsciously we might forget about the outcome, right? So what is build trap then? Okay, output versus outcome, right? So the build trap is nothing but, if you're focusing on output, then we are into the build trap. If you're focusing on outcome, then we are not into the build trap. It's as simple as that. Okay. Now, what's the impact of a build trap? So let's say we fell prey to a build trap. Something happened, and we are into the build trap. So what is the impact of it, right? The product team will ship a ton of features, which is awesome, right? New features is always great. We take pride as product managers in releasing new features, right? Why shouldn't we? That's our job. We should ideate, we should build features, we should release, right? We should use the new technologies available out there, isn't it? Right? So product team keeps on shipping new features, and then it could happen that your features are not necessarily contributing to the real value for the customers, because you are building a ton of features, but is anyone looking at whether those features are really adding value, really getting revenue? Is the user actually using the features? And you will often find, like even in the Shark Tank, if you might, people who watched it, you must have seen a lot of people who came and said, hey, we have X products. And the next question would be, okay, what is driving your revenue? And maybe it is 2 out of 10 products which is driving the revenue. And the rest 8 are probably not so well used, right? So remember that you are shipping the features, which is great because someone asked, but the cost which you're incurring in shipping these features may or may not be giving repetitive real value for all customers, quite possible, right? The number 3 thing could be the company or product allows them to be disrupted, right? Because now you're shipping a lot of features and you're not necessarily providing the real value. it's quite possible that there is some other company out there who comes, who understands what the user needs are at the next level, and they went ahead and launched that. And while you are still focused on shipping the features of your own kingdom on own territory, there is some other company which is probably disrupting you, right? So we are allowing ourselves to be disrupted if we are just building features, right? And then what will happen ultimately is we will either lose market share or competition will take over, right? And then this is a vicious circle. Now competition takes over, so now you want to ship more features to keep up with the competition. Then as you do it, you're entering into a vicious circle of falling into the build trap, right? So that's the impact, folks, here, that if you're falling into the build trap, it literally is a vicious circle, and we need to break this to get out of it, right? So now the next question I'm sure a lot of you will have is how to become aware that if we are in a build trap or not, right? I mean, it's so easy to fall into this trap, but is there a way for us or mechanism for us to be aware that we are in a build trap, and maybe recognizing that we are in a build trap is the first thing we can do to get out of it, right? So yes, so I'll give you a few scenarios here, right? And you can ask yourself. The first question you can ask yourself always is, why am I building this feature, right? If, and whatever I say here are examples, so don't read this as sure short answer. So if your answer is, oh, my sales team sold this and the market needs this, okay, great. The consulting mentioned that if I don't deliver this functionality, I will lose this client, right? And I need to deliver within so and so release. Or, oh, my manager asked me to build this feature, right? Or my client asked me to build this feature, right? If any of these answers are true or some similar pattern you see in your mind when you're asking this question, then you are into a build trap, right? The expected answer from you should be, what is the value that the user will get from the feature, right? So why am I building this feature? I own it. The ask might have come from anywhere, whether it is sales or consulting or customer value or real customer or your own peer product manager or your own super boss or exec team or whoever, does not matter, or your own ideation also. But ultimately, if you're able to justify the value the user will get from the functionality or the feature, then you are owning up the problem and you're not falling into the pit, right? The second checkpoint, who am I building this feature for, right? Very easy question, right? And your answer might be also a good one, like a specific client or a bank or a corporate or a friend of mine who's a sports person I know has this pain point, and hence I'm resolving this issue or I'm bringing up this discovery into life. Okay, awesome. But this is also a possibility of a build trap because you might not have done enough investigation, and maybe these users who you have talked to or customers you have talked to are just those one off, and they are becoming a product manager here and telling you what I want, right? So who am I building this feature for has to be a little bit more certain, like, are you sure that you know a certain user in a certain industry or a certain will surely use it, or do you have a use case which you feel is applicable for more than one client or the entire user persona, right? Remember, repeatability, right, and not targeted at a specific customer is key here, right? If there is repeatability of the usage across different users for sizable chunk of users, and you are not targeted or getting fixated by a ask coming from a very specific input like a customer, then maybe you are not into the build trap, as an example, right? Let's look at the next question, right? What value will the user or client get, right? And if your answer is, well, the client will be able to send email better because I have built a great email utility tool, or they'll be able to download the data seamlessly and now store it anywhere they want, or they can edit this transaction, like they're booking a ticket, they want to edit it, they can edit a transaction. Then you're talking about feature and functionalities, but you're not talking about value, right? So what is value? Value would be, oh, this will improve the productivity of my user by so and so percentage and giving them this time saving, as an example, right? So that is value, right? So what value will the user or client get is something, again, very important for you to think about, okay? Now, there are a few other situations or general scenarios. I'll cover it for you. So, what's keeping you busy? If you ask that question to yourself, and if your answer is, you know what, my clients or customers need some amazing features to be built for a successful go live, and I'm busy there. Or, my engineering team, I have to keep on feeding them user stories, release after release, week after week to keep them busy. Or I have to write very detailed product requirement specifications, that is PRS here, and ensure that my engineering has all doubts cleared, and that's keeping me busy. Hmm. Do question yourself again, because your all your answers might be tactical and may not be value oriented, right? What's your biggest challenge? If your answer is like, oh, you know what, consulting or sales, one says everything is important and I'm just not sure how to prioritize, or in my engineering team is slowing me down, and they really don't want me to build what I designed, they're not aligned with me. Again, that could be that you're into build trap, because maybe you don't know what the customer wants, what is the value, what is the quantitative advantage your business or company will get, and hence you're not able to convince your stakeholders. Quite possible, right? Or you're falling into the trap of some stakeholders who feel everything is important, and while you know about how to prioritize, you're not able to articulate it. And you're not able to articulate it, if I do another why there, maybe because you don't know exactly what the value, and or not able to logically explain, right? So think about it that also a little bit. And then maybe let's ask one more question. When was the last time you talked to your customer? A lot of product managers tell me, hey, I don't think as a product manager I'm supposed to go talk to the customer directly. I do have the customer facing teams, and I get a lot of value from that. Yeah, I'm not saying you go and talk to your customers on an everyday basis, but then it should not also be that you're away from your customers, right? You should know, unless you empathize and understand what your users need and empathize with the customers, you'll not be able to build the products which will add value to them. You might be building products which add value to your company, but in turn, it will not even add value to your company because you just don't know your users well, right? So these are the three, and I'll give you a very a simple example, right? In one of our product journeys, we realized that we had a calling functionality, and some of our clients were very excited to use, but they were not using it, right? And then when we did a deep dive, we realized that it just needed some change management for some clients, whereas for other clients it needed some reporting functionalities and not an advanced more calling functionality, but a reporting functionality, so that the manager in that organization can drive accountability or change management. In certain companies, we realized the problem was very different, wherein they had some internal compliance issues which were not allowing them. So we had to work past their legal and compliance team to get it rectified. So your problems can be anywhere. It might not be just feature functionality, right? So that's where I'm trying to say staying very close to the customers might help you understand what's happening as a pattern, again, not as an exception, right? But that's also a trap. You should not be too much into the customers and do whatever your customers want. Then you will again fall into the build trap. Okay. So now that we have talked a little bit about how do you assess first, right? That identify that you are into a build trap or not. The last chapter I'll cover is how to escape this build trap, right? Okay, we know we are in a build trap or some kind of a build trap. How do we escape it, right? What is the toolkit for that? So I'm going to cover that up a little bit now, right? So, by the way, this I have purposefully put here because there is actually an amazing book called as Escaping the Build Trap. And I would recommend all of you to go read it if you have not. Definitely a must read book. Okay. Okay, so I'll give you a framework here. A lot of you might have know me, you might know this framework, but if, in case you don't know, I'll anyways go ahead and explain, right? So the first thing is you have to break the uncertainty around you, right? Remember, as a product manager, we come across many data points, right? Asks which are coming from the customers, some data, some statistics. Engineering team is saying something, data science team is saying something, my manager is saying something, the exec team has a different vision, the sales team is all over, like they are just running after revenue. Marketing is running after their lead generation process. If you have a consulting or an external partner, and if you're a B2B software company, you'll have other kind of issues. So there are a lot of facts and lot of asks there, isn't it? So how do we break this uncertainty, right? So the framework is very simple. It's called known, unknown 2x2 matrix, right? So what does it tell you here? That there are 4 quadrants. So let's talk about the known. So the known are facts. These are things which we are very well aware, we understand, and we can bet our money on it. We know it for so sure that we can bet. Even if someone asks us that, can you put $10,000 on this statement of yours? We know it, right? So we are not making any assumptions, any opinions here. It is a fact. We know it for sure. So those are like known knowns. So we know that we know, right? That is what is known knowns. Then comes known unknowns. There are always situations or things which we know we don't know, and we are curious and we want to know about them, right? That's also a very good territory to be in, right? I know what I don't know, and hence I should go and ask questions. It's so simple, right? So I don't understand. There are things which I don't know. So I have identified that I have to go and ask those questions. So that is known unknown, right? Then comes unknown known, right? What is unknown known? It's like intuition, right? Things I believe is true, but may or may not be true, right? I'm not 100% sure of, but I have a strong gut feeling or intuition that what I know is true, right? Or maybe they are so much you believe into it that you don't want to go and figure out whether that is factual or it's your intuition. So that is unknown known, right? The knowns which we do not want to know. We know, but then there is something which we also don't know. So this is like the unknown known, right? And then comes the unknown unknown. Unknown unknown is generally the discovery, the place where we should do the maximum discovery, right? Where these are things we are neither aware nor we fully understand. So we really do not know what we do not know, right? Like you might not know what is your customer pain point in a specific area of work, which is fine, right? So that's the discovery. So we don't know that we don't what we don't know, right? We might be missing out these facts. Most often than not, we fall into a trap because we are assuming the unknown known and the unknown unknowns as facts or questions, right? And so we are like, oh, I just know what exactly I need to ask. So you ask that question and you fall into a trap because you didn't ask it further, right? So you don't know what you do know. So most often we will fall into a trap because we are considering intuition and discovery as facts and questions, right? So the best thing for you, given this framework, to do is you should try to convert as much unknown knowns and unknown unknowns to facts, being the first thing, or at least to a question phase where you know exactly what to ask and to clarify that. That is the most important thing, right? So spend time in reducing the unknown unknowns and known unknowns, right? So next is, how do you escape, right? So I'll give you, like, I simply tell this to my team and everyone. It's like a 3D framework, that 3Ds. And then there are a couple more points, but there are 3Ds which are very important. One is devil in the details. What is devil in the details? The moment you know even a fact, which you get to know here, or a question, or if you're on a discovery mode, especially then, you should get to the bottom level of it, right? So let me play this. A lot of you might have seen this, but maybe a recap. Let me play this video for you. Hold on. It's called the 5 Why framework. Let me know when you're able to hear the sound. Are you able to see my screen? Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, every supposedly technical problem is actually a human problem. That's why we ask the 5 whys.
5 whys.
5 whys. It's an old technique developed by Toyota. You just ask the question why 5 times, and then the nature of the problem, as well as its solution, becomes clear.
Yo, Sagar. Server crashed again.
Not again.
Well, let's do the 5 whys. Why did the server crash?
We pushed a new API to that server.
Why?
We just launched a new feature. It probably used that API the wrong way.
Why?
We have a new engineer who doesn't know how to use that API properly.
Why?
We never trained him.
Why?
Because you didn't want to train him. You sent me an email that said if they can't figure it out, screw them.
Why?
Because as a leader, you're a little bit incompetent, and you kind of know it, so you hide behind this tough guy like
Okay,
veil.
you know what? This whole thing is exactly why I would never buy a Toyota.
Well, at least we figured it out, right? See, what seemed like a technical problem is actually a managerial problem.
You know what? We can start offering a training program. I'll just have to cut your salary by 25%.
Why?
Because I can't afford to pay you a full salary and have a training program.
Why?
We don't make enough money for that. We have no revenue coming in.
Why?
Because no one wants to buy what we're making.
Why?
What we're making is worthless.
Why?
I think everyone who works here is incompetent.
Well, then we should stop asking the 5 whys. It's stupid.
Why?
Well, because I don't want my salary cut.
Why?
Well, I need money to buy things.
Why?
Because that's how I'm programmed by society. That's what society tells me that's what will make me happy.
Why?
Because a few corporations want me to keep buying stuff, you know? I'm like this sheep, you know? The fast food companies fatten me up so then the healthcare industry can slim me back down. I'm just like a pinball being whacked around in an arcade so that one man can have it all!
Why?
Because they're the Illuminati or...
All right. So that probably, tells you, right? I mean, just saw what happened in that video. So very simple, right? I'm not giving you any framework. Let's start with why. Keep asking that why, till you reach that elemental level of truth from where you cannot anymore ask why. That will help you know all the unknowns, right? So simple questions like this without any specific framework sometimes to wander. So that I call as devil in the details, right? Very, very important. The next is look everything with the eye to the detail, right? Typically, when you look at, I mean, this is a very favorite, image which I have always on mind. When you look at someone's name, you only look at the first name and the last name. Very easy, right? But the middle name is often missed out, right? But if you're looking at the middle name with a lot of attention to detail, that is the level of eye to the detail which we recommend you. So if you're looking at a software, when you look at the screen, are you literally looking at pixel by pixel? How is the screen looking? What is the button? Where is it? Why is the user using this, not using this? Looking at data, looking at the user experience, everything with that level of eye to the detail, right? And not just at a high level. So that is the second D, right? Eye to the detail. The third D is obviously data, right? Nothing can replace data. Please don't overuse data, because overutilization of data might be bad because you might not have data to support you all the time. But with whatever data you have, you should at least try to get the best out of it, or you should push to get the required data if you can, and try to do a data-driven decision making. Like, okay, why should I add this feature? Okay, it will help me improve the productivity by 5%. Okay, how am I sure that it will improve the productivity by 5%? Is there data to back it up? Those are the kind of questions which you need to ask. Right? Or if someone says, you know what, if I build this feature, I'll be able to assist a certain user persona, save 3 hours every day. Oh, wow, awesome. But how 3 hours? What do they do during the day? Where do they spend their time today? What if they're not even spending 3 hours on that activity and you feel magically that you'll be able to save it? So we are flawed there, right? So that's where data will help you in escaping the build trap. The last one is the success metrics, right? As I told you, there are success metrics for the company and there are success metrics for the customer. So you need to always think, what is the success metric for the company and what is the success metric for my customer? Like if a bank is buying your software, maybe, I mean, if it is an onboarding software, they would want to see is the onboarding time for a customer reducing or not, or they might want to see if it is a end user software, they might want to see how many times is the user glued onto that software. Are they able to sell more products to the user because the product is so user friendly that they are able to buy more banking products from that, or anything like that, right? So that's a bank thinking about it, but you might have another company which is thinking of something completely different. So that's where applying those right success metrics and knowing whether the product usage is going up or down, is it in the right direction, wrong direction, is usage even the right metrics for your product? What if your product is all about automation and you don't expect the user to use the product? So that also is a question which can be asked, right? So success metrics. So after 3Ds comes the success metrics, which is important. And the last is the emotional quotient, right? Remember that you need to make the customers fall in love with your product. And falling in love with your product happens from value, but it finally also happens from the emotional connect which the customers get out of your product. So if you're building features for the emotional connect, you need to be a little bit more careful here. But that doesn't mean you should never build a feature for emotional connect. Emotional connect generally is, oh, I really love this UI, my two user interfaces provides the same functionality. Like a lot of people love CRED as an example, just because they like the UI, right? I mean, there is functionality, but a lot of people love the user interface as an example. So those are the kind of things which you need to care for, that okay, is it really having an emotional attachment with the customers, and that is going to drive usability for my customers? Am I really upgrading the life of my customer or user by providing this product? That's where the last thing would come when it comes to building the right features and not falling into the build trap, right? So with that, I'll pause. I think that's it I had from my side. I know we are just 2 minutes away from 8 p.m., but I can still work another 5 to 10 minutes and take a couple more questions. So I'll pause here and stop sharing. And yeah, interested to know feedback on how was the session. Did you get to learn something? And interested to answer your questions. All right, lot of silence.
I have a question, Sonali. Sahil Dua this side.
Yeah, Sahil, go ahead.
So, is there a fair balance between the actual build trap or the value proposition that we are going to make as a product owner? Do we need to make a balance, or do we really need to avoid the build trap completely?
Yeah, great question. Um, in my mind, I'm not saying don't build features, but escaping the build trap means don't build features which will not add value. So if that is what you meant, Sahil, then we should avoid the build trap completely as much as possible. It's a journey. I mean, if you are into build trap, it will take you a while to get there. But yes, we should avoid the build trap completely, because there is no meaning in building something which has no value.
Correct. Got it. Thank you, Sonali.
Hey, questions? Other questions? Right, lot of silence. I'm assuming no more questions, but any feedback, anything, guys, you can unmute and ask if you wanted to add some perspective or you had a question. But yeah, because you guys are silent and you're virtual, a little bit of interaction will be great.
Sonali, one question from this is Pradyut. So I got the gist that you were discussing that avoid the build trap, but as most of us are new product managers, we are aspiring to be. Okay.
Yes.
Now, and there are different stakeholders that we are managing: sales,
yes,
the company, and of course. Now, how do you know? And I, of course, that you gave some framework, but still, how do you decide that? Because whenever you are going with your gut feeling or with a conviction, there is a risk that you are also taking, right? So how do you manage the stakeholder expectation? Because suppose they are not in line with you. So how do you manage those expectations? And where do you again strike a balance between the senior stakeholders in the system as well as your team who were having a different opinion against your decision, something on that?
Sure. Yeah, so I completely understand, especially if you're a budding product manager or an aspiring product manager, you're in a new ecosystem, which the ecosystem itself is into a build trap, it will become very difficult. But here is the thing, right? If you want to be a great product manager, and I think every company will agree to this, that you need to be curious, right? So you can always ask the questions in a very amicable and data-centric way, which gives an aha moment to your leaders or stakeholders, right? A lot of times when you talk to your stakeholders, you might get into an emotional battle. Like, why is this guy asking me? Why is this guy buzzing me so much? Why is this guy just not going and doing their work? You will have those pushbacks, right? Why does he not understand that I just don't want to talk about this topic, or just go build what I say, man? Why are you even asking me these questions? So you will face those pushbacks from the stakeholders. But that's where the clarity comes in, right? So if you know your subject well, if you know your domain well, because you have done the devil in the details exercise, you have done the eye to the details exercise, you have also looked at data, or maybe you also have done some customer interviews and you know it much better than those stakeholders. then you will be able to apply logic and explain it to them, right? And that's where you would be a different, you would come across as a stronger person, and you will win over your stakeholders, because at the end of the day, I'm assuming at least you will have one stakeholder among many who will understand logic, and will get convinced. At the same time, you might have a stakeholder who knows more than you, and in that case, I would urge you to be curious to even know that, and not get biased by what your decision is, right? Because it's not necessary that a product manager by themselves, himself or herself, will make the best decision. It's in the best interest of the product manager to listen to all the stakeholders too, because a lot of times a stakeholder might know a certain topic about your product much better than you know. In that case, you should be open to listen to them, but apply the same framework there too. If they're saying an opinion, ask them why in a very amicable way, and understand. And I believe that will help you earn respect, even if there is some initial pushback. Does that answer your question, Pradyut?
Yes, Sonali, that answers. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. All right. You're a little over time. Priyanka, you want to take it forward from here?
Yeah, thank you, Sonali. Such a great presentation. Uh, so whatever question you guys have, you can you can also put them on our platform, TrueMerit, and we can take it forward from there also.